Okay, let's give you guys some more practice. So will this integral converge or will it diverge? So press pause and have a go. Okay, so to do this, realize that this is a constant, so you can take the 7 out. So realize that realize that this thing here is a constant, so you can take it out here. So this whole thing here can be written as one thing multiplying another thing. Now it really boils down to us deciding whether or not this converge or if it diverge. So here you've got one thing multiplying another thing. If this thing here converges, if the whole thing here converges, let's say it converges to, let's say 73, then if it's a definite answer, then when you get a definite answer and you times by 7, it's going to give you a definite answer. If this thing here, if this whole thing here keeps on growing, if it keeps on growing and growing and growing, and when you times by 7, the whole thing here will keep on growing and growing and growing. So when you've got one thing multiplying another thing, if this thing here converges, then the whole thing here will also converge, because all you have to do is times by 7, and it's going to give you a definite answer. So now it really boils down to us having to decide if this here converges or if it diverges. So the trick here is to realize that we should compare this with 1 over x squared. So here you've got one thing, so you've got 1 divided by another thing. If you look at this, exactly the same thing, and then you plus a tiny bit. So you plus a tiny bit. Well, if you add an extra tiny bit, then the overall thing here will be less than x squared. So here you've got this thing here. Look at it. This is exactly the same as this, but then the denominator here, you're adding a tiny bit extra on here. So if you add a tiny bit extra, then that makes this thing larger. Then the overall thing here will be smaller. I hope you can follow that. Yeah, think about it. Here, exactly the same. You're adding an extra tiny bit. If you're adding an extra tiny bit, this thing here will be bigger than this thing. Well, if the denominator is bigger, then the overall thing will be smaller than this. Well, I hope you can follow that. So now we know. Well, you should know that this thing here will converge. You should ingrain this in your mind, because 1 over x looks like this. So from 1 to infinity, this thing here diverge. So if you have 1 over x squared, it's going to look something like this. So this side here will then converge. So you should know that this, whenever you have 1 to infinity of 1 over x squared, this thing here will converge. We've done this many times. So realize that this thing here converge. Well, if this thing is always bigger than this thing, and this thing converge, therefore this must converge, because let's say 1 over x squared looks something like this. This thing here is always smaller or equal to. So this thing, I don't know what it looks like, but it's always smaller or equal to. So if the bigger one converge, then the smaller one has no choice but to also converge. So therefore, this thing here, this whole thing here, will converge. Now, if this thing converge, meaning if this whole thing here converge, therefore, when you times by 7, it will be a definite answer. So therefore, this whole thing here must also converge. Okay, so yes, so the answer is yes, this thing will converge. Okay.